Okay, these are my slides. Hello, everybody. I'm Mikk, as was said already, and today I'm going to talk to you about technical interviews. So the aim is actually to give out some hints on how to score on those technical interviews, and I'm going to do it for around 20 minutes or so, I hope. Myself, in recent years, I have actually been to hundreds of interviews. And that's not exactly because I have been job hopping, but I've been on the other side of interviewing table and needing to decide whether a candidate is a good fit for a company, Pipedrive in this case. Also, during those hundreds of interviews, well, to be honest, I think the number is actually between 100 and 200, which doesn't technically stand for hundreds. But I mean, if I said it's less than 200, I keep saying hundreds. So during those hundreds of interviews, or when I'm trying to conclude anything from them, any good hints, I have realized that most of the hints are, that I can give out are very generic. So they are not specific to technical interviewing or like attending technical interviews. And yeah, to even go further, you could consider them as generic advice for life. So that is exactly what the title could be of this presentation as well. Anyways, let's dive in. So first off, I would like to tell you a little bit about the technical interviewing process we have in Pipedrive, just so that you understand what I'm talking about. For technical roles, engineering roles, we usually have like 3 or 4 interviews before the person gets hired. The first interview is just to see that the person is a good cultural fit, their attitude is good for us, etc. Also, we check that their English is good enough because that's the language we speak in Pipedrive. And then the second interview, if the first one is a success, is the technical interview that I'm going to deep dive more into, where we basically try to assess the technical level of the candidate. And the third one is basically an interview with soon-to-be direct manager who also just sees if the person is a good fit for the company and the team. So the technical interview itself, nowadays how we do it is that we give out some, it's a 1 to 2 hour interview that during COVID times, of course, has been held online, but actually we prefer to have it on site. And during that interview, we give out some technical exercises for the candidate. And then they can solve those exercises while the interviewers are watching. We do allow Googling, of course, and it's encouraged to ask questions, and we give out hints, and more importantly, we ask follow-up questions. There was something else I wanted to tell about it. Luckily, I have my high-tech notes. Yeah, there was one thing. So also, in Pipedrive, when somebody gets promoted, especially if it's a promotion between levels or like they get a title change in promotion or are about to get one, then they go through a long evaluation process, basically, where thorough evaluation process, where they give feedback about themselves, then their peers, lots of them, give feedback about themselves, then there will be a committee who will be assigned from different roles, and then those have multiple meetings, and in the end, the person gets promoted if the committee agrees so. I'm not claiming that that's a perfect way of doing it, but what I'm saying is it's one of the most objective ways I have seen anybody getting promoted. So, and how does it relate to technical interviewing is that actually when we do those technical interviewing or when we are trying to assess the candidate on a technical interview, we actually need to do it on the same scale with great precision, with very little information and time available. And to do that, well, that's what the follow-up is going to be. I have discovered that I have a few shortcuts or that I'm paying attention to, things that I'm paying attention to that help me reveal the seniority of a candidate. So, first off, as you already expected, it's the CV. where before the interview, I'm taking a look at the candidate's CV, and it's definitely a place where you can go wrong. I mean, you can go wrong with the CV, but you can also go right with that. And the right thing I could say, or the right way to build a CV, is that keep it short, keep it relevant, keep it accurate, so that the skills you actually list, you really feel that you own those skills. Yeah, maybe some of the bad examples I could give out is that sometimes the list of skills candidates have pointed out is just way too long. I mean, I'm talking about like maybe 50 items in a list that you're proficient in. Well, if you claim that right away during the interview, I have no other way but to ask you what exactly are the most important skills that you're good at. Or one more way, for instance, to get more information that you can get out from a CV. For instance, I recall one case where the candidate claimed in their resume that they have exceptional communication and coding skills in written and, in all sorts of ways. And then on the next sentence, they had a typo, pretty bad one. And it wasn't even like intentional, for sure. So I just got a good laugh when I saw that resume. So definitely keep your resume clean and relevant. Yeah, when the interview starts, as I said, we actually give out some coding exercises, and they start sharing their screen. But before even we get to the coding part, the screen share starts. And I would say that's the most interesting part of the interview for me to observe, because how you actually download or git clone some, files, then open them up with your editor. I think it's like something straightforward that I do the same way all the time, but well, having done those hundreds of interviews, I can tell that there are many ways to do it. And also, it's a point where some people fail to do it. Well, definitely they don't fail to actually open up, a folder with their editor. But if it takes, 5+ minutes for a senior, then definitely these can be considered a failure. So my main message here is actually, if you're actually using your own computer to do whatever you're doing on your interview, I expect you to be good at using your own computer and the setup that you have. All the tool set, whatever you use, there are no limits or set rules that you have to use, but just know your tools and use them well. Communications is something that we never can overlook. I guess it's expected that during the interview, although it's just a technical interview, I'm basically to assess the candidate's seniority, or like maybe somebody would think it's just coding skills, then communications is a big part of it, actually, always. And sometimes I get this question that people ask me, why would communication be so important part for an engineer? Can't you be just, that 10x engineer doing all the work in a company? Yes, you could, but the thing is that in Pipedrive, we have around 1,000 employees. Out of those, around 400 are technical people. So even if we had all the engineers as those 10x engineers, we still would need like tens or hundreds of those, and they need to cooperate. I mean, that's the thing. Just one 10x engineer wouldn't do it all. So we need more people, and for them to be effective in the work, the teamwork is extremely important. Yeah, so about the communications, of course, what I mean is that they are clear when they explain something, and when they ask something, I understand what they ask, and when I ask them something, I expect them to understand, etc. So it's pretty straightforward. Then we get to the coding part, which is basically the meat of the interview, actually. But I'm not sure, I'm not even going to step much on it. Let me see my fancy notes. Well, the coding part, of course, is a lot about writing the algorithms. But it's not about just writing them. Actually, the exercises we give out are rather simple, and it's more about how they communicate or how their thought process goes that I'm interested in. Like sometimes, for instance, I give out exercises in a language in which the candidate is not good at. I can be totally language agnostic myself. I don't even care if they do the exercises correctly. I'm interested in their thought process and how they would construct an algorithm. I had something else. Yes. So it's also very crucial part in the coding are the follow-up questions that I have for the code itself. So even if the given exercise is perfectly solved in a minute, actually the follow-up questions are what determine whether the candidate knows in depth what they just did or some of the details that they did. So yeah, that's one of the points. Another cool thing about this coding while being interviewed thing I want to point out, because I think it will be the future, is that maybe you have heard of this small tool called GitHub, what is it called? Copilot, I think, GitHub Copilot, which is basically an AI-based code generator. My own mindset on this is always that if you have any tool available while you're working, then definitely, during a test or an interview, you should always have that same tool available, because, I wouldn't be able to write Java without an IDE. So definitely, you need to have that tool, basically. And if we have that tool, which is GitHub Copilot, available, then we should allow using it on interviews as well. And we have allowed the use of it on interviews. But what I have seen many times is that when people are good at using GitHub Copilot, actually it writes, you give them some simple exercise, you state the function name, had good comments, because that's exactly how Copilot works. But if the comment is good enough, well specified enough, then the Copilot magically just creates the code, and it's very hard to assess what the candidate would do without the Copilot. Yeah, basically that's one of the key ideas I want to throw out. So probably coding like that will not stay there forever. How to overcome this, I think the future will be that the code is a lot generated, and the programmer just needs to be able to read it and understand that it actually works correctly, because the Copilot can make mistakes, and then you need to just validate it. Also, when coding, then of course, how the code is formatted gives out lots of information about the seniority. How does it? So for senior, would you expect it to be spaces or tabs? Spaces, somebody said. I agree nor disagree. So I'm very open-minded in this case. I don't really have a strong opinion, especially on an interview, what the formatting should be like. It really doesn't matter. Use whatever kind of formatting you like, but I think a senior would never, or a senior would always be consistent with their formatting. That's the thing. And it's I think I see many juniors often go wrong with. So whatever kind of formatting you like, use it, apply it, but be consistent. And it's even bonus points, because you have like ESLint or Prettier, whatever tools available. You can set up your IDE so that it doesn't even allow you to have bad formatting for your code. Shortcuts, or it's once again just the use of the tools that a person has for themselves. It's I think one of the biggest one, on the background showing the seniority of anybody. Basically, whenever writing some code, there are many shortcuts available you don't need to write the boilerplate. You just press some buttons, it's there. If you need to move lines around, that's what happens, during the interview. How that's exactly done reveals a lot about it, or how you rename a variable, all those things. I would also say, I would also claim that now that you got this hint that, shortcuts, yeah, I got it. Then you come to the interview and, I learned some fancy shortcuts, you see? No, it doesn't work like that. I would claim that it's something you can't really fake. The reason is that, shortcuts still has to be relevant, and it has to make your work more efficient. So if you don't use it in a correct way, then it doesn't make you more efficient, it looks odd. And if it does make your work more efficient, then I would claim you have become a better developer. So it's something you really can't fake. So use your tools, learn your shortcuts. I would also say that actually engineers are one of they could compete on, just plain text modifying, moving lines around, etc. I think developers are, the best people in the world for this, like just plain text editing with all their shortcuts at hand. What I mean by perception is that during the interview, often I have found myself in a place where I start asking a question to the point where the person has a breakup, in that sense that they don't know the answer to the question, or they don't understand the question, or I just ask them a question that doesn't make sense, and then they are like, why are you even asking this? What I have realized, like at first I think I did it subconsciously, but now I kind of do it consciously. The reason I do it is that I want to put person into a situation where it's uncomfortable for them. And that gives me just a lot of information how they would react when there is much pressure on them, basically. And the worst thing they could do, of course, is to perceive any kind of question as an attack. Because, basically I'm mimicking what would happen in real life scenario when you have some heated conversation with your colleagues. And I think, as I was saying, it's just general life advice for life. Whenever somebody attacks you verbally, or like usually I hope they attack actually your code or your idea, not you specifically. But even if you feel that you're attacked, then don't perceive it as an attack. And I think it's a good mindset to have. Authenticity, of course, is another thing that pays off very well. I think I had some idea for that as well. Let me check. Yeah, basically the idea that I wanted to give out is that it comes back to the previous point that I might start asking questions which don't make sense or you don't know answer to. And I think the best strategy I can give for that moment is that, often you have this moment that you don't know the answer to the question that was just asked. Then the best strategy would be just admitting that you don't know the answer and not stop there, but give your best shot. Because once again, this is exactly what happens in real life scenarios. Like, we don't know all the answers, nobody knows. But we have some information to work with. We have some skill set to work with. And if you have a task at hand or a problem, just give your best shot. So admit that you don't know something whenever you don't know something, and then just give your best shot. Let me see. Oh, I have more. So sometimes when coding, people also get stuck at trying to build the perfect solution for the exercise at hand. That is something that I would totally discourage. So don't do it. It's like, I guess it's once again like a regular generic advice for life. Try to iterate, basically. Do your initial shot, your initial implementation, as ugly as it is. Well, keep your formatting good, but otherwise as ugly as it is. And then just iterate, make it better. So progress over perfection, I think, would be a good key takeaway. And for me, it's a red flag if the person has no questions for me. Because, well, it's not just the Pipedrive hiring them, of course, but it's for them, a life-forming decision whether to join Pipedrive or not. And if they are telling me that they don't have no questions, I'm really triggered by that. So everybody should have some curiosity and some questions that they would like to ask. And that's exactly what I would expect from a candidate, even during a technical interview. And no questions are stupid. That's once again the case that maybe the questions are unasked because they are considered stupid by the person itself. Okay, so to recap, have a good resume, simple and clean and objective, or relevant at least. Know your tools. That's the biggest thing. Like, use your tools, know how to handle them, whatever those tools are. Don't perceive anything as an attack, and always progress over perfection. So thank you. And you may use your curiosity right now. I hope the Slido works, because we have planned a few questions here.
Thank you. Thank you a lot.